I thought my best friend had my back. Then she told me she saw my husband making out with another woman in the middle of a flood warning. Let me back up. I moved to a new country when I was 11. My family didn't know anyone and I was that awkward kid with the wrong accent and the wrong clothes. My soon-to-be sister-in-law introduced me to Sarah that first year and we clicked immediately. She was loud, confident, and she didn't care that I said soccer wrong. We became inseparable. Through middle school, high school, all of it. When I met my husband Jake at 19, Sarah was the first person I told. She was my maid of honor. She was the aunt to my 2-year-old daughter. I thought we were family. Now I'm 29, married for 5 years, working a 9 to 2 office job with a 30-minute break I usually spend grabbing a second breakfast at the cafe down the street or walking 5 minutes to Jake's office to say hi. Some weeks I have to travel for work, go to another city for a meeting, stay overnight. I always mention it to Sarah in casual conversation. She likes to know my schedule and I never thought anything of it. Last Tuesday, a red alert weather warning came through for the next day. Flash flooding, don't drive, stay home. My Wednesday work trip got canceled, so I stayed home with our daughter. Jake left at 6 in the morning to check on his business and put up flood barriers. He owns a small shop a few blocks away. He was back by 7:30 and made us breakfast. It didn't even start raining until 1 in the afternoon. We spent the whole day inside, playing with toys, watching cartoons, the three of us. Honestly, it was a nice day. At 3 o'clock that afternoon, Sarah texted me, "Are you home already? It's flooding where you were traveling." I texted back, "Home safe." That was it. We didn't leave the house until Friday. Saturday morning, Sarah and I have the same gym class. We always go together. That day she seemed off, quiet, fidgety. After the class, she grabbed my arm and said, "We need to talk, in private." We went out to my car in the parking lot. She looked at me with this serious face like she was about to deliver bad news. She said, "I saw Jake on Wednesday. He was in his car with a woman. They were making out. Your daughter was in the back seat." I froze. My stomach dropped. For a split second, my brain went to that dark place. What if she was telling the truth? But then the memory clicked in. Wednesday, I was home, Jake was home, our daughter was home, we never went anywhere. I asked her, "Are you sure it was this Wednesday?" "Yes," she said. "Are you sure about the time?" "About 11 in the morning." "Are you sure it was during the red alert when the roads were flooding?" She nodded. "Yes, I saw them." Jake was kissing this blonde woman, gorgeous like a Barbie doll. I could see her clearly. They were in his car and your kid was strapped in the back. She kept going, describing every detail. The way the woman's hair fell, the way Jake's hand was on her neck, the way the baby was looking at a tablet. She was so specific, so sure, and I just sat there listening until she finished. Then I said, "Sarah, I was home with Jake all day Wednesday. My work trip was canceled because of the weather. He never left except to check his shop before the rain started. He was back by 7:30 and we didn't go out until Friday. I texted you at 3 that I was home safe. Remember?" She went pale. Her mouth opened, then closed. I said, "So you didn't see him, you made this up." She started stammering. "Maybe it was another day, or maybe I saw someone who looked like him. I don't know, I was worried about you. You described a blonde woman in detail. You told me the time, you told me the place, you said my daughter was in the car. That's not maybe it was another day, that's a specific lie." She didn't have an answer. She just sat there, eyes wide, shoulders tensed. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just said, "I think you need to leave." She got out of the car, I drove home. That night, I replayed everything in my head. Why would she do this? We've been friends for 18 years. She's never shown jealousy before. But I started thinking about how often she'd mention that I should get out more and not be so tied down. How she'd joke that I was boring since I had a kid. How she'd talk about all the trips she wanted to take and how I couldn't come because of the baby. Maybe she wanted me to be single again so we could travel together like we used to. Maybe she thought if I divorced Jake, I'd have more time for her. As if being a single mom would be some kind of vacation. I called Jake and told him everything. He was furious. He wanted to confront her, but I told him to let me handle it. I sent Sarah a message that night. "I don't know why you lied, but we're done. Don't contact me again." She replied, "I was just trying to protect you. I swear I thought I saw him." But I knew that was a lie. You don't accidentally see a specific scene that never happened. That was 2 weeks ago. I've blocked her on everything. Our mutual friends are confused, and some of them are taking her side, saying I'm overreacting, that maybe she made a mistake. But a mistake isn't describing a fake kiss with a fake blonde. A mistake isn't trying to destroy my marriage. I don't know if I'll ever understand why she did it. Maybe she was jealous of my life. Maybe she wanted me to be miserable too. Maybe she just wanted more of my time and saw my husband and kid as obstacles. All I know is that I lost a best friend that day. And I'm still trying to figure out if I ever really knew her at all. I thought I was overreacting at first. I kept asking myself, did I miss something? Could I have misremembered the day? But no, I checked my calendar. I checked the weather history. I checked my texts, everything lined up. The only story that didn't add up was hers. That was when everything changed. I started noticing other small things, like how she always asked about my travel plans in detail, how she'd text my husband sometimes, ask him how his day was. I'd written it off as friendliness, but now I wonder. I don't have a happy ending for this part yet. I'm still hurt, still angry, but I'm also relieved I found out the truth before she could do real damage. Because if I had believed her, even for a second, it could have broken my marriage. So that's my story. And now I'm sitting here, coffee in hand, thinking about how you can know someone for 18 years and still not know them at all. But that wasn't the only family drama I've had. Let me tell you about what happened with my sister and my ex. I'm 25 and I've got a stepsister, let's call her Mia, who's 2 years younger. Our parents got married when I was 4 and she was 3, so we grew up together like real sisters. We were close, really close. Then when she was 14, she got cancer, lymphoma. She was sick for about 2 years and it was brutal. My parents turned into overprotective helicopters overnight. They asked a lot of me and I gave a lot. I quit my high school volleyball team, threw a tantrum, got punished, moved on. I got a job to help with medical bills. I drove her to chemo appointments. I skipped dances and sleepovers because she couldn't go and I brought her along to everything I could. I did it willingly mostly. I loved her. She made a full recovery. We both moved on. I went to college, met a guy named Ben when I was a junior. We fell hard, moved in together after graduation. 3 years of living together, talking about marriage, planning a future. Then one day in July, I came home early from work. I walked into our bedroom and saw Ben fucking my sister on the bed. I didn't scream, I just stood there. They froze. I turned around, walked out, and sat in the living room until Ben came out in his boxers. He tried to talk, but I told him to get the hell out. He packed a bag and left. Mia came out crying, apologizing, saying it was a mistake, it meant nothing. I said, get out of my apartment. She left. I thought that was it. I thought she was giving me space, that she'd come back and properly apologize. But a couple of weeks later, she called and asked to meet for coffee. I agreed, thinking maybe we could patch things up. We met at a little cafe near her place. She sat down, ordered a latte, and said, I'm just telling you as a courtesy before we post anything online. Ben and I are in love. We've been together since before you caught us. We're moving in together next month. I didn't finish my coffee. I stood up, walked out, and left her with the bill. She Venmo'd me later, asking for her half. I ignored it, then my parents called me to their house. They sat me down in the living room like I was the one who'd done something wrong. My mom said, we're very disappointed in you. You need to support Mia. She's been through so much with the cancer. Ben makes her happy. Why can't you be happy for her? I said, she slept with my boyfriend of 3 years while we were living together. That's not something I just support. My dad said, we know it's hard, but you need to think about her health. She could have died. She deserves happiness. I asked if they were serious. They were. My mom said, you've always been the strong one. You can handle this. She can't. That's when I realized my parents had been enabling Mia her entire life. The cancer made it worse, but they'd always treated her like the fragile one. I was the dependable one. I'd given up volleyball, dances, my time, and now they wanted me to give up my relationship too. I told them I needed space. They said I was being selfish. I left. A few days later, my dad texted me asking to meet for dinner, just the two of us. He said he wanted to talk, maybe apologize. I agreed. I drove 40 minutes to the restaurant he picked. I got there early. I waited 15 minutes, 30 an hour. He never showed. I called him 3 times, straight to voicemail. The next morning, he sent me a text. Sorry I couldn't make it. Mia needed me to help her move some boxes. Let's reschedule. I didn't reschedule. I went no contact with my parents for 6 months. During that time, I heard through the grapevine that Mia and Ben were engaged, then that they'd broken up. Then that he'd cheated on her. I didn't care. I was building my own life, making new friends, going to therapy. Eventually, my dad reached out again. He said he realized he'd made a mistake. That my mom and Mia had pressured him into skipping the dinner. He wanted to see me. I agreed to meet, but I was cautious. We met at a diner. He apologized, sort of, said he didn't know how to balance being a dad to both of us. I told him he'd broken my trust. He said he'd work on it. We've since started rebuilding a relationship, but it's slow. My mom is still distant. Mia never apologized. She sent me a friend request on Facebook last month. I ignored it. I still think about that moment in the bedroom sometimes. Not the sex, that's burned into my memory, but it's not what haunts me. What haunts me is that she looked me straight in the eye that day in the cafe and expected me to be happy for her. And my parents expected the same. They said I should be understanding because of her cancer. But the cancer doesn't give her a pass to destroy my life. And my being the strong one doesn't mean I don't get to feel betrayed. I used to feel guilty for cutting them off. Now I just feel tired, but at least I know where I stand. And I don't have to let anyone set me on fire to keep them warm. But that wasn't the only family drama that came out of nowhere. Let me tell you about a message I got on Facebook that turned my whole life upside down. I'm a 40-year-old guy now, happily married, 2 little girls, 7 and 5. I've built a good life. Stable job, nice house, a wife who trusts me, but I've been hiding something for almost 2 decades. Something I never told anyone, not my wife, not my parents, not my closest friends. And then one day, a friend request popped up on my phone and I knew I couldn't hide anymore. Back when I was 20, I was a mess. I was living 1,000 miles away from my family, still in school, working part-time and dating a girl, let's call her Amy. We were together for about a year. It was okay, but we were headed in different directions. Then she got pregnant. I panicked. I pushed hard for an abortion. I told her we weren't ready, that I couldn't be a dad, that it would ruin both our lives. She didn't agree. She kept the baby. We lasted maybe 3 more months into her pregnancy. I cheated on her. I was an idiot, a coward, a complete jerk. We broke up. I talked to her a few times after that and we both agreed I would be a terrible father. I was immature, irresponsible, and bitter. So I signed away any rights, paid whatever child support they ordered, and I walked away. I saw my daughter one time when she was 2 months old. That was the summer of 9-5. I held her for maybe 10 minutes, handed her back, and that was the last time I ever laid eyes on her. I told myself it was for the best. Amy eventually married some guy and I heard she was happy. I convinced myself she was better off without me, but the guilt never fully went away. It sat in my chest like a stone. Then in 2000, I met my wife. We got married 2 years later. We had our first daughter in 2005 and our second in 2007, and I threw myself into being the perfect dad. I coached soccer, I went to every recital, I read bedtime stories every single night. I wanted to be everything I hadn't been for that first child. My wife thought I was just a naturally involved father. She didn't know about the ghost. I never told her about Amy, about the baby. I was too ashamed. I thought if I buried it deep enough, it would stay buried. Then one evening in July 2012, I was scrolling through Facebook on my phone. A notification popped up, "You have a friend request from Emily Thompson." I didn't recognize the name, but when I clicked on the profile, I saw a photo of a teenage girl with dark hair and brown eyes. She looked just like Amy. My stomach dropped. I felt like I was going to throw up. I clicked on her profile. She was 17. Her cover photo was a sunset. Her bio said, "Senior year, here we come." I scrolled through her photos. There was one of her holding a puppy, one of her at the beach, and then one of her with a woman who looked a lot like Amy, maybe 20 years older. That had to be her mother, my ex. I sat there for 20 minutes just staring at the screen. I didn't accept the request. I didn't reject it. I just stared. Then a message came in. It was from Emily. She wrote, "Hi, this is probably weird, but I'm Emily. I think you're my biological father. My mom told me about you. I've always wanted to meet you, but she said it wasn't a good idea. Now that I'm almost 18, I wanted to reach out myself. I hope that's okay. I don't want anything from you. I just want to know who you are. No pressure." I read that message maybe a dozen times. My hands were shaking. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't tell my wife, not yet. I had to think. So I did what any rational person in 2012 would do. I posted anonymously on Reddit asking for advice. I wrote out the whole story just like I'm telling you now. And I asked the internet, how do I respond? The comments were brutal. People called me a deadbeat. They said I had no right to be stern with her. I had literally used that word in my post. Maybe I need to be stern and clarify the past. One commenter said their eyebrows actually lifted off their head when they read that, and they were right. What was I going to do? Tell a girl I abandoned to not speak to me like that? I had no authority. I had no relationship. I had nothing. Another commenter pointed out something that really stuck with me. Unplanned pregnancy really plays out differently for dudes. And they were right. I had the privilege of walking away. Amy had to raise a child alone. My daughter had to grow up without a father. And I was sitting there in my nice house with my 2 kids, wondering if I should respond with a firm tone. I thought about my options. I could ignore the message and pretend it never happened. I could write back coldly and tell her I didn't want to dredge up the past. I could try to be warm and establish some kind of relationship. Or I could be honest, tell her the full truth about who I was back then and let her decide what she wanted. I spent 3 days agonizing. I barely slept. My wife noticed I was distracted. I told her work was stressful. I hated lying to her, but I wasn't ready to confess yet. Finally, I wrote back. I said, "Emily, thank you for reaching out. You're right, this is a little weird, but I'm glad you did. I want to be honest with you, I was a coward when I was 20. I made terrible choices and I've regretted them for a long time. I'm not proud of who I was, but I've worked hard to become a better person and I have a family now. I would like to get to know you if you're open to that, but I understand if you're not. Whatever you decide, I'm sorry for not being there for you. That's on me." I hit send before I could chicken out. She replied within an hour. She said, "Thanks for being honest. I don't hate you. I just wanted to know your side. Can we maybe talk on the phone sometime?" We exchanged numbers. We talked a few days later. It was awkward and stilted, but we made it through. She told me about her life, school, friends, her mom. She said her stepdad was a good guy, but she'd always wondered about me. She asked why I never tried to see her. I told her the truth. I was scared and ashamed. She said, "That's okay, at least you're talking now." Then came the hard part. I had to tell my wife. I sat her down after the kids were in bed. I told her everything. The old relationship, the pregnancy, the abandonment, the Facebook message, the phone call. She was quiet the whole time. When I finished, she just looked at me with this sad expression. She said, "I wish you'd told me years ago. I feel like I don't know you." I told her I was sorry. She asked if I wanted to meet Emily in person. I said yes, but I needed her support. She said she needed time to think. That was 2 months ago. We're still working through it. I've met Emily once in a coffee shop near her town. It was surreal. She's tall like me, has my laugh. We talked for 3 hours. She's smart and kind. She said she doesn't want me to be her dad exactly, but she'd like to stay in touch. My wife has been distant, but she's trying. She says she needs to rebuild trust. I understand. I broke her trust by keeping such a huge secret for so long. As for what happens next, I don't know. I'm just taking it one day at a time. I know I can never undo the past, but maybe I can be a little less of a coward moving forward. I thought I knew who my best friend was. I mean, we'd known each other since we were 11 years old. That's 18 years of friendship. 18 years of sleepovers, shared secrets, inside jokes, fights, makeups, everything. Sarah was the first person I met when my family moved to this country. I was this scared little immigrant kid who didn't speak the language well, and she just sat next to me at lunch and started talking. She didn't care that my accent was thick or that I wore the wrong clothes. She was my anchor. Fast forward to now. I'm 29, married to my husband Dan for 4 years. We have a 2-year-old son. I work in an office from 9 to 2, and I usually take a 30-minute break for a second breakfast. Sometimes I walk over to Dan's office. It's only a 5-minute walk, or I hit a cafe nearby. Dan runs his own business, a little shop in the same neighborhood. We've got a good life, not perfect but good. Sarah and I still hang out. We go to the same gym class on Saturdays. We text a few times a week. She's single, no kids, and she's always been a little jealous of my marriage. Not in a mean way, I thought, just a little wistful. She'd say stuff like, "You're so lucky you found Dan," or "I want what you have." I'd tell her she'd find it. I never thought anything of it. Then last Wednesday happened. I had a work trip planned for Wednesday. I was supposed to drive to a client about an hour away, but Tuesday night the weather alerts started blaring. Red alert, flood warnings. The whole city was bracing for a storm, so my work trip got canceled. I stayed home with my son. Dan went out at 6 in the morning to make sure his business was secure, put up flood barriers, move inventory. He was back by 7:30 and we made breakfast together. The rain didn't even start until 1 in the afternoon. We spent the whole day inside, watching movies, playing with blocks, just a normal rainy day. At 3 that afternoon, Sarah texted me, "Are you home already? I heard it's flooding near where you were traveling. You okay?" I replied, "Home safe. Didn't go anywhere, stayed in all day." She sent back a thumbs up emoji. That was it. Saturday came, we met at our usual gym class. Afterwards, Sarah pulled me aside and said, "We need to talk in private." We went out to my car. She looked serious, almost nervous. I thought maybe she was going to tell me something personal, maybe a health scare or a breakup. Instead, she said, "I saw your husband on Wednesday." I blinked. "Okay, he was home with me." "No," she said. "I saw him with a woman, they were making out, and your kid was in the car." My heart stopped. For a second, I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was going to throw up, but then something clicked. "Wednesday," she said, "Wednesday." And I knew with absolute certainty that Dan was with me all day Wednesday. We made pancakes together. He'd helped me clean up after the toddler. He hadn't left the house except for that early morning run to his shop, and the baby was with us the entire time. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just asked very calmly, "Are you sure it was this Wednesday, the one with the red alert?" She nodded. "Yes, I saw them at around 11 in the morning. They were in a parked car near the old mall. He was kissing some blonde woman, gorgeous like a Barbie doll. I recognized his car. I recognized your son in the back seat." I asked her again, "You're 100% sure?" "Yes," she said, and she started describing it in detail. The color of the woman's hair, the angle of the car, how long she watched. It was like she had rehearsed it. I think that's when I knew. I didn't know why yet, but I knew she was lying because there was no way. No way my husband was making out with some blonde at 11 in the morning during a red alert while our son sat in the back. No way. I didn't confront her right there. I said, "Okay, I need to process this. Let me talk to Dan." And I left. I drove home shaking. When I walked in, Dan was on the floor playing with our son. He looked up and said, "Hey, how was class?" I just stared at him. He saw my face and asked what was wrong. I told him what Sarah said. He went pale. Then he got angry, not at me, at her. He said, "I was here, you know I was here. What the hell is she playing at?" I believed him, because I was there too. I had the memory of that whole day. That night I started thinking, why would Sarah do this? She'd been my friend for 18 years. She'd been at my wedding. She'd babysat my son. Was she jealous? Did she want Dan for herself? Did she want me to be single so I'd have more time for her? I remembered how she'd always say she wanted to travel together, go on girls' trips, but I always said no because I had a family. And I remembered how she'd made little comments about Dan over the years. "He's too perfect. Does he ever mess up? You're so lucky it's almost annoying." The next day I called her. I said, "I checked with Dan. He was home all day Wednesday. I was home. We have photos from that morning. The baby's daycare log shows we didn't drop him off, so either you're lying or you saw someone else." She didn't answer for a long time. Then she said, "Okay, maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was a different day." I said, "No, you confirmed 3 times it was Wednesday. You gave me details. You wanted me to believe it." She started crying. She said she didn't know why she did it. She said she was lonely. She said she wished she had what I had. She said she never meant to hurt me. I told her I needed space. I haven't spoken to her since. I've been going over every conversation, every moment, trying to figure out if there were other signs. And I keep coming up blank. Maybe she just snapped. Maybe she thought if she could break us up, I'd go back to being her single friend who had time for her. But here's the thing, even if she was lonely, even if she was jealous, you don't try to destroy someone's marriage. You don't make up a story about their husband cheating with their kid in the car. That's not a cry for help, that's sabotage. I still don't know if I can forgive her. I don't know if I want to. Part of me wants to just ghost her, block her, pretend she never existed. Another part remembers the 11-year-old girl who sat next to me at lunch and made me feel like I belonged. But that girl isn't the woman who told me lies about my husband. I haven't decided what to do yet. For now, I'm just keeping my distance. And I'm holding my family a little tighter because I almost lost them over a lie. And I never saw it coming. I didn't know what to do with myself after the Sarah thing. I spent a week just staring at walls, replaying that conversation in my car. My husband kept asking if I was okay, and I kept saying yes, but I was. 18 years of friendship gone because she wanted me single. It made me think about trust, about how you never really know someone. And that made me think about my sister. Her name is Emily. Well, stepsister, but we grew up together, so she's just my sister. Our parents married when I was 4 and she was 3. We shared a room, shared clothes, shared a childhood. We were close, the kind of close where you don't have to say anything to know what the other is thinking. Then she got cancer when she was 14. I was 16. Everything changed overnight. My parents became shells of themselves, constantly worried, constantly hovering over Emily. They asked me to quit my volleyball team so I could get a job to help with medical bills. I threw a fit about that, but I did it. I quit. I drove her to appointments. I gave up school dances, parties, any normal teenage thing that didn't include her. I did it willingly, mostly. I loved her. I would have done anything to make her better. She recovered. Took 2 years, but she came out the other side. We were both different people. I went to college, met Ben in my junior year. We fell hard. He was funny, smart, ambitious. We moved in together after graduation, lived together for 3 years. I thought we were going to get married. I thought I had my future all mapped out. Then I walked into our bedroom in July and saw him fucking my sister. I don't think I'll ever forget that image. The way her hair fanned out on my pillow, the way he didn't even hear me come in. I stood there for maybe 3 seconds before I screamed. They scrambled apart and she started crying, saying she was sorry, it was a mistake. Ben just sat there with his head in his hands. I told him to get out. I told her to get out. I broke down. She apologized at first. Sent me texts saying she was ashamed, that she didn't know what came over her. I didn't respond. I needed space. I thought she was giving me that space. 3 weeks later, she called and asked to meet for coffee. I agreed, hoping maybe she wanted to fully apologize, maybe explain. Instead, she sat across from me at the cafe and said, "Ben and I are in love. We've been together for a few weeks now officially. I'm telling you as a courtesy before we post pictures online." I didn't say anything. I just stood up, walked out, left her with the bill. She Venmo'd me later asking for her half. I ignored it. Then my parents called me over. They sat me down in their living room, the same living room where we'd had family dinners, where Emily had curled up on the couch during chemo. My mother looked at me with this sad, disappointed expression. My father started in, "We're really upset with you. You're not supporting your sister. She's been through so much. She nearly died and now she's found love. How can you be so selfish?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I said, "She slept with my boyfriend of 3 years in our bed, and you're upset with me for not supporting them." They brought up the cancer. They said, "You know she had a hard time. She struggled with her self-esteem after her treatment. Ben made her feel beautiful. Can't you just be happy for her?" I said she could have found anyone. She didn't have to take mine. My father said he was disappointed in my lack of compassion. My mother said they'd always expected more from me. I left. I didn't speak to any of them for a month. Then my father called and said he wanted to have dinner with me, just the two of us, to talk things through. I agreed because I wanted to believe he could see my side. I drove 40 minutes to the restaurant he picked. I sat there for an hour. He never showed. He texted me after, "Sorry, had to help Emily with something. She was upset." That was the moment I realized my family had chosen her. They chose her over me not because I was wrong, but because she was the one who almost died. And in their minds, that meant she could do no wrong. I stopped talking to all of them. I moved to a new city. I got a new job. I started therapy. I met someone new, a guy named Alex, who understands what it's like to be the forgotten child. We've been together for a year now, and I've never been happier. Last I heard, Ben and Emily broke up. He cheated on her with someone else. Shocker. My parents called to tell me, hoping I'd feel sorry for her. I didn't. I felt sorry for the girl she used to be, the one who fought cancer, but that girl died the day she chose to destroy me. I don't have a sister anymore. I have a stranger who shares my blood. And I'm okay with that. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. You just have to learn to walk away. So I thought that was the end of that chapter. I thought I'd learned my lesson about trusting the wrong people. But then I got a message on Facebook that made my stomach drop. It was from a name I didn't recognize, a girl named Emily. The message said, "Hi, I think you might be my biological father. I'm 17 now. My mom told me about you. I'd like to talk if you're open to it." I stared at the screen for 10 minutes. I felt like I was going to throw up because I knew exactly who she was. The daughter I'd walked away from when I was 20 years old. The one I'd never met, never supported, never thought about except in the guilty moments at 3 a.m. I'm 37 now. Married, two beautiful little girls, ages 7 and 5. I'm the kind of dad who bakes cookies on weekends, who coaches soccer, who reads bedtime stories every single night. I've poured everything into being the father I never was to Emily, and my wife doesn't even know she exists. I had a girlfriend when I was 20. We dated for about a year. She got pregnant. I panicked. I begged her to get an abortion. I was 1,000 miles from my family, still in school, still a kid myself. She refused. We stayed together for a few more months, but I cheated on her. We broke up. I told her I'd be a terrible father, that it was better for everyone if I just disappeared. She agreed. I saw my daughter once when she was 2 months old. I held her for maybe 5 minutes, then I left. I never looked back. I never paid child support. I never sent a birthday card. I just erased that part of my life and pretended it didn't happen. I met my wife in 2000, we got married in 2002, and I told myself the past was the past. I never told her about Emily. I was too ashamed, too scared that if she knew what I'd done, she wouldn't trust me with our own daughters. But now Emily was reaching out, and I had to decide what to do. I didn't respond right away. I let the message sit for a week. I thought about my options. I could ignore it, block her, pretend I never saw it. I could respond with a stern message, tell her I wasn't interested, she should move on. I could be honest, apologize, try to build something. I didn't know what was right. I finally replied. I said, "Hi, Emily. Thank you for reaching out. I'd like to talk too. When are you free?" She wrote back within an hour. We set up a phone call. My hands were shaking when I dialed. She sounded nervous. I sounded nervous. We talked for about 20 minutes, just surface stuff. Her school, her hobbies, her mom. She asked me about my family. I told her I had two younger daughters. She asked if they knew about her. I said no. She was quiet for a second, then said, "Okay, that makes sense." I asked if she was angry. She said, "I don't know yet. I'm mostly curious. I want to understand why you left." I told her the truth. I was young, scared, immature. I wanted to be a good father, but I didn't know how. I thought leaving was the best thing I could do for her. I said I was sorry. She said, "Thank you for saying that. I think I need time to process." We agreed to talk again. I hung up and sat in my car for an hour, just staring at the dashboard. Then I told my wife. I sat her down after the kids were asleep. I said, "I need to tell you something I should have told you a long time ago." And I told her everything. The girlfriend, the pregnancy, the abandonment, the secret I'd carried for almost 2 decades. She didn't scream, she didn't cry. She just looked at me with this expression I'll never forget, not anger, not disgust, just disappointment. She said, "You had a whole other child and you never told me. I married you, I trusted you, I thought we were partners." I said, "I was ashamed, I didn't know how to tell you." She said, "You could have told me before we got married, before we had kids. You took away my choice to know what kind of man I was marrying." I didn't have an answer. She went to bed. We barely spoke for 2 days. I talked to Emily again. This time she was more open. She said her mom had married a good man, a stepdad who raised her. She wasn't looking for a replacement. She just wanted to know her biological father, to have that connection. She said, "I don't want money. I don't want you to be a dad. I just want to know who you are." I told her I wanted to know her too. We started messaging regularly. She sent me pictures. She looked like her mother, but she had my smile. It was surreal. My wife eventually came around. She said she needed time, but she could see I was trying. She said, "If you want a relationship with her, I'll support you, but you have to be honest with her too, no more secrets." So I told Emily about my wife, about my daughters. She asked if she could meet them someday. I said yes, someday, but then my wife's family found out. My mother-in-law called me a deadbeat. My father-in-law said I was a coward. My wife defended me, said I was trying to make it right, but the damage was done. I wasn't just the guy who abandoned his kid. I was the guy who lied about it for 17 years. I'm still trying to figure out how to be a father to two families. I'm still trying to earn back my wife's trust. I'm still trying to show Emily that I'm not the same kid who walked away. But I'll tell you this, every night I read to my younger daughters, I think about the nights I missed with Emily. Every bedtime story is a reminder, and I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself. But at least now I'm not running anymore. I'm facing it, and that's all I can do. I thought I was overreacting, honestly. After I told my wife the truth about Emily, I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. I figured she'd leave me or at least make me sleep on the couch for a year. But she didn't. She just looked at me with that quiet disappointment, like I'd shattered something she thought was unbreakable. For the next few weeks, we tiptoed around each other. She'd ask how my conversations with Emily were going, and I'd tell her, but there was this wall between us. I knew I'd built it myself, brick by brick, with every lie I'd told since we met. Then one night after the kids were in bed, she sat me down and said, "I need to know everything, not just the broad strokes, everything." So I told her about the pregnancy, about the abortion talk, about cheating on Emily's mom, about holding my newborn daughter for 5 minutes and then walking out the door, about the 17 years of silence, the birthday cards I never sent, the child support I never paid. I told her about the guilt that kept me up at night, the way I'd look at our daughters and wonder if I was just pretending to be a good dad. She cried, I cried. She held my hand and said, "I'm angry. I'm so angry you didn't trust me with this, but I'm not going anywhere." That was when everything changed. For the first time in almost 2 decades, I didn't feel alone in the secret. I had someone on my side, but then Emily asked to meet. She wanted to come to our city. She was 17, almost 18, and she said she had some money saved from her part-time job. She could take the bus. I said yes, but my heart was pounding. My wife helped me prepare. We cleaned the house. We told our younger daughters that a friend was coming to visit. They were excited, jumping around, asking if she'd play dolls with them. I didn't know how to explain that this wasn't a casual playdate. Emily arrived on a Saturday afternoon. I picked her up from the bus station. She was taller than I expected, with her mother's eyes in my jawline. She smiled, but it was nervous. I hugged her and she felt stiff in my arms, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to relax. We drove home in silence. She stared out the window. I kept glancing at her, trying to memorize her face. When we got inside, my wife greeted her warmly. Our younger daughters peeked from behind the couch, curious but shy. Emily crouched down and said, "Hi, I'm Emily. I'm your big sister." They didn't understand. They're 7 and 5. They just saw a nice older girl who wanted to play, and she did play. She spent an hour building Lego castles with them, laughing, letting them braid her hair. I watched from the kitchen, holding a coffee cup I wasn't drinking. My wife came up behind me and said, "She's good with them." I nodded. My throat was tight. That night, after the kids were asleep, Emily and I sat on the porch. I said, "I don't know how to be your dad. I've never done this before." She said, "I don't know how to be your daughter." "I've never done this either." We laughed. It was awkward, but it was real. She told me about her life. Her stepdad was a good man. He taught her to ride a bike, helped with homework, walked her down the aisle at her 8th grade graduation. She called him dad. She said, "I'm not trying to replace him. I just wanted to know where I came from." I told her about my parents, my childhood, how I became the person who made such a terrible choice. I didn't make excuses, I just explained. She said, I'm not ready to forgive you, but I'm glad we're talking. I said, that's fair. She stayed for the weekend. We went to the park, we got ice cream, we took photos that I'll never delete. When she left, I hugged her longer than I should have. She said, I'll text you when I get home. She did, and we've been talking ever since. But here's the thing about secrets, they have a way of coming out no matter how deep you bury them. My wife's family found out because my mother-in-law saw a photo of Emily on Facebook. She recognized the resemblance. She called my wife and said, who is that girl? She looks just like your husband. My wife explained. Her mother didn't take it well. She called me a deadbeat, said I was a coward, said my wife should leave me. My father-in-law said I had no right to call myself a father. My wife defended me, but I could see the toll it was taking on her. She was tired of defending my past, tired of explaining why she stayed. I offered to talk to them. She said no, they need to come around on their own. Months passed, holidays came, my in-laws didn't invite us for Christmas. My wife cried. I held her and said, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, she said. I know, but sorry doesn't fix it. And she was right. Sorry doesn't bring back the trust I broke. Sorry doesn't give Emily back the father she deserved. Sorry doesn't repair the family I'd kept a secret from, but I'm still trying. Every day I'm trying. I send Emily a good morning text. I ask about her exams. I send birthday gifts. I told my younger daughters the truth about Emily in simple terms they could understand. They said, so we have another sister. Cool, kids are resilient. Adults are not. Last week, Emily turned 18. I drove 5 hours to her college to take her to dinner. She introduced me to her roommate as my biological dad, but we're working on it. I shook the roommate's hand and smiled. We had pizza. She told me she was dating a guy named Jake. I said, be careful, boys are idiots. She laughed. I know you were one. I deserve that. I'm not the man I was at 20, but I'm also not the man I want to be yet. I'm somewhere in between, stumbling forward, trying to make things right, not for redemption, not to feel better about myself. But because Emily deserves to know that at least one version of her father tried to be brave. Maybe that's enough. Maybe it's not, but it's all I've got. But not every story gets a neat ending. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones holding the knife. I thought I had the best friend anyone could ask for. Her name was Sarah and we'd known each other since we were 11 years old. I just moved to a new country, didn't speak the language, didn't know anyone. My future sister-in-law introduced us and Sarah took me under her wing. We grew up together, went through high school, college, first jobs, first heartbreaks. She was at my wedding. She held my hand when I gave birth to my son. I trusted her with everything. I'm 29 now. I work in an office from 9 to 2 with a 30-minute break. Sometimes I go to my husband's office. It's a 5-minute walk or I grab coffee nearby. My husband runs his own business. We have a 2-year-old. Life was good, busy but good. Last week I had to travel for work on Wednesday. But Tuesday night a red alert came through about severe weather, flooding, high winds, the whole thing. My work trip got canceled, so I stayed home with my toddler. My husband went out at 6 in the morning to check on his business, put up flood protection. By 7:30 he was back making breakfast. It didn't even start raining until 1 in the afternoon. At 3, Sarah texted me, are you home already? It's flooding where you were traveling. I replied, home safe. We didn't go out until Friday, nothing eventful. Saturday morning we went to our usual gym class together. Afterwards, Sarah looked serious. She said we needed to talk in private. We went out to my car and she dropped the bomb. On Wednesday I saw your husband with a woman, they were making out and your kid was in the car. I froze. For a second my whole world tilted. But then I remembered, Wednesday I was home all day with my husband and my son. He never left. We made pancakes. We watched cartoons, we napped. I asked her 3 times if she was sure it was Wednesday. She said yes 3 times. I asked what time. She said about 11 in the morning. I asked if it was during the red alert. She said yes. I asked if she was absolutely 100% sure. And she launched into this detailed description. My husband making out with a gorgeous Barbie-like blonde girl in the parking lot of a grocery store. I sat there staring at her. And then I said very calmly, Sarah, I was working from home on Wednesday. My husband was with me. We never left the house. Her face went pale. She started backpedaling, saying maybe it was a different day, maybe she misremembered. I asked again, why would you tell me this? She said she was looking out for me. She said she didn't want me to be cheated on. I didn't scream. I just said, I think we need some space. I drove home and told my husband. He was furious, not at me but at her. He said she's trying to break us up. Why? I didn't have an answer. We went through our messages. I'd mentioned my canceled trip to her in casual conversation. She knew I was supposed to be out of town. She saw an opportunity. I called her the next day. I asked again, why would you lie about my husband? She broke down. She said she was jealous. She said I had a perfect life, a good husband, a beautiful kid, a stable job, and she felt left behind. She thought if she could create drama, maybe I'd need her more, maybe I'd lean on her. Maybe I'd become a single mom and she'd have more time to hang out and travel with me. It was pathetic. It was insane. I told her we were done. I blocked her number. I blocked her on social media. My husband and I talked about whether to press charges for defamation or something, but we decided it wasn't worth the energy. But here's the thing, I still don't fully understand. We were best friends for 18 years. She held my baby, she was at my wedding, and she threw it all away because she wanted to see me fall apart. Some people can't stand to see you happy. They'd rather see you miserable but needing them than thriving without them. I'm still processing it. I still have moments where I think maybe I misread something, maybe she wasn't lying, maybe my husband did something. But I know the truth. I was there, I saw him cook breakfast. I saw him change diapers, I saw him kiss me goodnight. Sarah tried to sabotage my marriage and she failed, but she succeeded in ending our friendship, and that part still hurts. Then there's the kind of betrayal that comes from family, the kind that leaves you questioning your entire past. I'm 25. My dad married my stepsister's mother when I was 4 and she was 3. She was my sister in every way that mattered. We shared a room, shared a life, shared everything. When she got cancer at 14, I put my own life on hold. I quit volleyball, I got a job to help with medical bills. I drove her to appointments. I missed dances and parties. I did it all willingly because I loved her. She recovered. I went to college. I met a guy named Ben. We fell in love, moved in together after graduation. We were serious. I thought we were going to get married. Then one day in July, I came home early. I walked into our bedroom and I saw Ben fucking my sister. I didn't scream, I just stood there. They scrambled, pulled apart, she apologized. He said nothing. I broke up with him. He moved out. I thought she was giving me space. A few weeks later, she called and asked to meet for dinner. I agreed, hoping we could talk it through. Instead, she told me she and Ben were in love. They were a couple now. She was telling me as a courtesy before they started posting photos online. I left the restaurant. I didn't pay for my food. She Venmo'd me asking for the money. I ignored it. Then my parents called me to their house. They told me how disappointed they were that I wasn't supporting my sister's relationship. They brought up her cancer. They said I owed her happiness after everything she'd been through. They said I was being selfish. I asked my dad to meet me for lunch, just the two of us. I wanted him to understand. He agreed on a time and place. I showed up. He never came. He texted later saying my sister needed him. He chose her. That was the moment I realized I didn't have a family anymore. I had people who cared about my sister more than they cared about the fact that she slept with my boyfriend. They rewrote the narrative so I was the villain for not rolling over. I went no contact for a year. I moved cities. I started therapy. I met someone new, a kind, patient man who didn't cheat and didn't lie. Last month, my stepsister reached out. She said she and Ben had broken up. She said she missed me. She said she was sorry. But sorry doesn't erase the image of them in my bed. Sorry doesn't give me back the years I spent caring for her while she plotted to take my life apart. I told her I forgave her for my own peace. But I didn't say we could be sisters again. Some bridges burn and the ash just doesn't rebuild.